Hi, everybody. Good morning, and welcome to today's episode of Wisdom of the Soul, presented by the Ageless Wisdom Mystery School. We're here on Zoom, as you know, if you're here with us live every Sunday morning, 11 o'clock California time. And for those unable to attend live, we post the entire video on YouTube, and we put an edited version out as an audio podcast to all podcast players and aggregators. And all of it can be easily found by searching Ageless Wisdom Mystery School with Google, with your YouTube search, with your podcast player search, Ageless Wisdom Mystery School. Remember, I do private intensive work, and the first one is free if you're interested in one-on-one work. Might be a single session. Could be the free session. Is all you need. That happens once in a while. And if you're interested in counseling or the fly training, which is a 10-session intensive, all private one-on-one, really powerful personal development stuff on emotional intelligence, critical thinking, peak performance, all kinds of wonderful tools and techniques. The best of kind of a Jedi training. I call it Fly, feeling like yourself. Just go to michaelbenner.com and click on the red circle. You'll access my online calendar and be able to schedule that initial free session. Also, the studio salon is filling up. I have one or two fence sitters. Otherwise, we're ready to go. I'm going to limit this to 10 people, and we're going to begin on August 5th. That's a Saturday, the first Saturday in August at 11 a.m. California time. And those of you who have expressed a desire to be a part of that group will receive an email from me in the next couple of days. So watch your inbox, and I'll give you all the information. This too will be private. It will not be recorded and will not be posted anywhere at all. Studio Salon is a conversational group. It's a salon. It's a studio salon. it's exactly what the name suggests, where we'll be discussing personal and transpersonal development in our lives, how it's going, where we need some help, and we'll support each other. And I'll facilitate it, but will not teach it. It'll be conversational in nature and really affordable, and I'm excited about it. So, again, I've got a couple of fence sitters, so if this is something that you're interested in, shoot me an email, because I don't know which side of the fence these two are going to fall on. And there may be some openings. So email me at any of my email addresses. The best for this Wisdom Mystery School, of course, is awmysteryschool@gmail.com. awmysteryschool@gmail.com. Today's class is about anger, how to de-escalate, how to manage anger in others as well as yourself. Now, in most personal development work, we find ourselves saying repeatedly, you can't do for another person anything you're unable to do for yourself. So we usually talk about, everybody wants to change the world, but few people ever consider changing themselves as a way to do it. It's risk-free to want to fix other people, right? You don't have any skin in the game when you say, oh, I just want to help out, I just want to change the world. Yeah, well, doing what? How are you going to help? What do you have to offer? And that has to come from your own personal work. So this is understandable, like that old aphorism about putting your air mask on first before you, remember, every time you taking a commercial airplane flight, they have to tell you that. If the mask drops, uh, put yours on first before you try to help somebody else. Why is that not selfish? To put yourself first, right? So it makes perfect sense. And yet, today, after we do our opening meditation, we're going to talk about anger in terms of how you can help other people with their anger as a way of learning to manage your own. We're going to approach it sort of in a backward way today. And I'm not talking about helping people who are angry at you manage their anger. If their anger is directed at you, you're probably the last person to help them manage their anger. But in another situation, let's say your partner is upset with a friend or a work associate, or got cut off in traffic, or screamed at a retail clerk or a waitress or something. And how do you have those conversations? Or if you're in a work environment, you're a boss, you're a supervisor, you're a manager, or an executive. I've seen very high-powered executive meetings explode like they were kindergarten. And here's people bringing down six figures who ought to know better, and they bit flip. And I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but I bet every one of us has at some point in our life, bit flipped, where you just see red and lose it, and anger becomes rage, and we do and say often very regrettable things. So how do we avoid that? Some of what we'll talk about today. Anger is the king of negative emotions, if I can say it that way. It's the biggest, it's the baddest, it's the most difficult to manage. And yet, I would argue that our negative emotions, so-called only because they hurt, have value. I've always had a little problem with calling negative emotions negative, because they have real value. Like, I understand that nobody wants to feel emotional pain. We also would rather not feel physical pain and often go out of our way to avoid it. But imagine the damage that could be done, that you could do to yourself if you felt no pain whatsoever. You might unknowingly put your open palm on a hot stove burner and smell meat cooking before you realize what you've done to your hands. So little, oh, damn, that's hot. Ow. See? Feeling that pain is a good thing. It's a feedback loop. But when it's emotional pain, it's not so easy to pull your hand away, is it? When it's emotional pain, we often are confused and find the source of the emotion, the negative feeling, to be a little confusing or complex. The meaning and the significance of why am I angry is often escapes us, is often difficult to realize. In fact, it's not uncommon for people to even be in denial about their negativity. You can hear the foghorn in the background. They just don't see it. They see it in others. You're projecting. But it's often much harder to see in yourself. So people say, angrily exclaim, I am not angry, and then threaten you. If you say I'm angry again, I'm going to smash you in the face, right? To prove that I'm not angry. Well, what is that about? It's a survival mechanism, basically. Anger is a defense mechanism, and it is complex. And so we're going to dissemble anger today. I think you're going to enjoy it. I know you're going to find it valuable. Maybe enjoy is not quite the right word, but some valuable tips for you today on how to manage anger in relationships with other people and in your own self. 8 tips for managing anger with others, 8 tips for managing anger with yourself, within yourself. So let's do our opening meditation. If you'll get comfortable in your furniture, your chair, sitting cross-legged on the bed, the sofa, your meditation cushion, wherever. Close your eyes, center yourself, and take 3 or 4 nice, slow, deep centering breaths. Inhaling through the nose, you pull in strength and power. Exhaling through the nose or the mouth, you create and sense a letting go feeling. And for our purposes, let's make it a nice and even inhaling 4, 5, or 6 seconds. Hold for just a beat. Exhaling for the same amount, 4 to 6 seconds. Fully beyond where you'd normally stop. Pause for a beat. There's no hurry. And repeat the cycle. Get a sense of the back and forth of the breathing actually being around and around. Make a nice circle out of it. Each time you exhale, feel a little more letting go, a little more relaxation, a little more safety. Breathe normally and scan your body from head to toe or from the bottom of your feet up. Either direction, doesn't matter. Slowly sweep the full length of your body, creating and sensing a wonderful feeling of letting go, releasing muscular tension, feeling the pressure of daily living being drained away, venting in a sense. Feel the letting go. And do that several times, slowly, the full length of your body, finding areas that tend to hold muscular tension and releasing it. Reminding yourself you're safe. Feel the letting go. And if you ever get confused and believe that letting go of muscular tension is letting go of control, simply say to yourself, I am in control of the letting go. I'm in control of the letting go. Later, when the meditation has ended, and perhaps when the class has ended, you're perfectly able to be in control of creating a great deal of tension if that's what you want to do. You may want to go lift weights or do some cardio exercise or clean the garage. You can Swim a few laps or run a mile. Right now, you're in control of the letting go. And after sweeping the full length of the body a few times, allow your awareness to rest on the bottom of the nose. You find the spot that's most comfortable for you. Tip of the nose, the septum, the cartilage between the nostrils, just inside the rim of the nostrils. You may want to center your attention, as we did last week, on the Ageless center corresponding to the pituitary gland. This is called third eye in the center of your forehead, as if overlooking the nose. So you find a place that feels natural and comfortable for you to just sort of camp out and watch your body breathing itself. Watch your so-called involuntary breathing. With the awareness that you were choosing to be the watcher, the observer, the witness of your body breathing itself all by itself. And of course, there's nothing to judge. There's no such thing as a good breath or a bad breath or better or worse, too short, too long. It's absurd. There's no such thing. There's nothing to judge. You just watch. This is an in breath. This is an out breath. And perhaps ask yourself silently, who is breathing me? What is breathing me? Let go further. Identify as the curious witness, the fascinated observer. By what means does my body breathe on its own? It's important that we acknowledge that there's no hurry here. That it's in our interest to take our time. The way nature unfolds and yet gets everything done. Slowly, carefully, deliberately without us. We are being breathed without participating in it. A state of non-attachment that allows us to experience the feeling of not having to hold on to anything. I release. I let go. And yet I remain. Say that to yourself. Non-attachment is letting go in all ways. Allowing all things to be exactly as they are. Just for a few minutes. And daring to risk the realization that there's absolutely no need to hold on to anything. Let go. And still, you remain. Say to yourself silently and internally, may I be safe, peaceful, and free of suffering. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be strong and confident. Again, may I be safe, peaceful, and free of suffering. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be strong and confident. Moving your awareness to your face, feel a subtle smile at the corners of your mouth. Not quite a grin, more a sense of contentment, as if somehow you were certain that everything is okay, despite appearances to the contrary from time to time. How risky, really, how risky would it be to allow yourself to taste the flavor and smell the fragrance and feel the tranquility of knowing deep in your heart of hearts, in your very soul, that everything's just fine? How would that feel? Allow yourself to go there, even if only for a minute or two. What if everything were right on schedule, unfolding in its own order, in its own time, exactly as it should? Are we willing to develop the capacity to appreciate that, if and when it is true? And allow that smiling countenance to move from your face slowly downward into your rib cage. And feel that same sweet, gentle sense of contentment in your upper torso, as if everything were okay, just fine, quite perfect. Thank you very much. As that gentle, smiling countenance slides slowly into the belly and the abdomen, the solar plexus, resting on your hips. Feel a smiling belly, a happy tummy. And sense that feeling now throughout your body from head to toe, all the way down to your toenails and the soles of your feet, out your arms to the tips of your fingers, the smiling, safe warmth of knowing everything's just exactly as it should be, without any effort or need to change anything. And to the top of your head, even in your ears, the rim of your ears, the earlobes, smiling in content from head to toe. Safe, relaxed, acknowledging the perfect balance, the peace, the beauty of all things at all times. Especially when appearances might deceive us. And radiate that outward without any effort. Notice there's no pushing. There's no effort at all in allowing that radiance to emanate through you and out into the world. Consider the millions of people right now on this earth planet that are in meditation deep, in prayer, in contemplation. And imagine yourself aligning with that group. Imagine including all souls above and free of form in meditation deep. With a loving desire for peace, and harmony, and healing, that we meditate as the larger group to redeem the fear and the anger, the hostility, the violence, the cruelty, indecency, and injustice that lives and breeds in the physical plane. For those shadows cannot exist in the light of your peaceful love. Be the light that fills those shadows. And understand this to be the work that we do, the identity of who we are. Redeemers, conscious agents of the one life, in form, to redeem fear and wickedness, evil, selfishness, corruption, with loving kindness. and harmony, goodness, truth, and beauty. It's who you are, that's what you do. This is how we do it. Take one nice, slow, deep breath, inhaling through your nose. Fill your lungs. Hold as you peak for just a moment. And as you exhale, just as slowly through the nose or the mouth, form the intention to return to the wide awake state. Feel a gentle drifting up, as if rising in the morning. And 3, as eyes open, wide awake, back in the room now. Open your eyes. Back in the room, wide awake. Feeling better than before. Wide awake, feeling fine, better and better. And you might want to stretch a little bit. Stomp your feet a little bit. Get back in your body. Make sure everything works. And thank you for that. Welcome back. Hold on a sec. I'm getting little messages on my computer I need to deal with. Do I want to enable dictation? No, I don't think so. Good. In about 30 minutes, we'll open up to Q&A. And it probably should be CQ&A, comments as well as questions that I can respond to. And happy to talk about the subject matter I'm about to discuss, anger, we touched on a minute ago, and we'll now address managing anger, but also anything about this meditation, or any of our meditations, or your daily meditation, or routine meditations. I don't remember getting very many questions about a meditation practice. And I think anyone who meditates has some concern about whether we're meditating as often as we should. Should I feel guilty when I don't meditate? What is my resistance to meditating? What is all that? Why is it I don't want to meditate? What are these voices in my head that keep telling me that it's a waste of time and I'm not very good at it and it's silly and, forget all the brain research that shows the remarkable benefits physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Meditation even grows your brain. I mean, it literally grows the gray matter and the white matter in your brain, established in a set of groundbreaking research studies in 2005, reaffirmed numerous times ever since. And it also promotes atrophy in the amygdala, that animal limbic brain. It's actually not the whole limbic brain. The amygdala is a little cluster, almond-shaped cluster of neurons at the base of the brain. That's the fight or flight center. It's what gets triggered when we're angry or afraid or just confused. That's really what fear is. That's where I want to start today, actually. Fear is not about danger, it's just about ignorance. And how all hurtful feelings flow out of fear. That's where we're going to start. So I'd love to have some questions and maybe some comments about that toward the end of the class today. And again, I want to appeal to every once in a while I get some email, and I love that. I love getting email. I read it all. I respond to respond to all of it unless it's obvious I don't need to respond. Ideas for topics in the future. What would you like me to talk about? Where do you want me to go with this? Not that I'm running out of stuff. We have on the podcast stream about 500, 500, I think 550 audio programs going back to 2007. So if you listen to the podcast, it'll usually deal up depends on the player you're using, but it usually deals up the latest episode, but you can wade back. I read the other day a study, 50% of all podcasts are old podcasts. A good podcast stream does not get dated. It's like the library. They're evergreen. There's still good stuff back there. But check out Ageless Wisdom Mystery School as a podcast, too, when you get a chance. The premise of my book, Fearless Intelligence, is that fear has nothing to do with danger. And it's an odd premise because every dictionary that you look in, at least every one I've ever looked in, is very clear about fear being a response to the appearance of danger or some sort of threat, whether real or imagined. And it's just not true. There are clinicians that attempt to discern a distinction between fear and anxiety. And they say, well, fear is a response to danger. Anxiety is more of a stress response to non-specific, confusion or overstimulation, just the stresses of trying to do too much, having too much on your plate. Well, the reason I think that that's a false dichotomy and that anxiety and fear are the same thing and manifest across a whole spectrum from panic and horror and terror and phobias on one end of the scale to just a little bit of nervousness and mild apprehension or a minor concern on the other end of the scale. People say, well, I'm not afraid. I am concerned. I worry a little about this or that, but I wouldn't call it fear. Okay, well, I would. How about that? Part of managing your fear is recognizing that it's not limited to big, overwhelming freak out, turn and run, right? Or the kind of nervousness that makes you bite your fingernails in anticipation. It's the subtlest disturbance, the slightest irritation. Cop to it, embrace it. It's an alert, it's a warning sign on the dashboard. As I said before the meditation, negative feelings have value. I know you don't want to feel heartache, and you don't want to feel sad and lonely. And you don't want to feel jealous, and you don't want to be angry. Well, usually we don't want to be angry. We did do a class on grudges the other day, and retribution and vengeance. There's a certain bloodlust and all of that, but when we're in our better mind, we know that that's not productive, quite the contrary. So the problem is getting stuck in fear and all of the so-called negative emotions that go along with it. A negative emotion is an emotion that hurts. Positive emotions, we know those. That's happiness, right? Joy. I want to say love, but love's really not an emotion. That's a whole other class. Love is more of a drive. Love indeed is consciousness. It's awareness. It's self. But it does have emotional qualities like happiness and peace of mind and such. So, but technically, even clinical psychology will say no. Love is not an emotion. The basic emotions are happiness, sadness, anger, and fear. And the sadness and the anger are rooted in fear, and the jealousy and the envy and the hatred and the cruelty and the indecency and the nasty, insulting things that we say in our attempt to hurt other people to make sure they know how badly they've hurt us, all the way out to war and shooting at people you've never been properly introduced to. Hot lead through the air. Bang, take that. Because my bullets are good bullets and my bombs are good bombs. And the blood we shed is good blood. So, emotional intelligence is huge. It's amazing that it took us until the 20th century to even begin to study it in psychology. So, it's our worship of the mind as cognitive, as mental, as logical and analytical, and our misperception of emotions as easily overwhelming that people are resistant to the whole idea of there being intelligence in your emotions. People say, Michael, what is emotional intelligence? When I get emotional, when I get angry, my emotions go right out the window. I mean, that's the last thing I have access to is intelligence. Mental intelligence, being reasonable. Reason is the first thing I sacrifice when I get emotional. And it's not just anger, it could be emotionally sad, feeling sorry for yourself, whatever. There's lots and lots. I gave you the 4 basic emotions. Some say 6 basic emotions. They add disgust and surprise to sadness, anger, happiness, and fear. But there's hundreds of emotions. I've seen charts of, I used to have one on the wall in my office, like 300 or more different emotions. Vocabulary is rich when it comes to, but they're all like combinations and permutations and variations. And again, the positive emotions are telling us, stay the course, keep doing what you're doing. And the negative emotion, so-called negative, though it has value, that's my point, is just saying course correction needed. There's something you don't understand. And that's what fear is, the feeling of not understanding. It's got nothing to do with danger. How often has somebody said to you, or you perhaps said to yourself, why am I so worried? What am I worried about? And the answer is, I don't know. You might say it again and again, well, I don't know. I don't know. I had a client this week said, I don't know, 7 times in a row. I sat back and counted. I don't know. He just kept saying, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Well, that's the point. That's what, call it anxiety, nervousness, worry, doubt, fear, the big F word. It's what you don't know. It's what you don't understand. That's what fear is. And you've probably heard the little personal development aphorisms about fear is false evidence appearing real. I like that, frankly. Or forget everything and run. Or one of my favorites, fear knocked on the door. I answered. Nobody was there. You may want to write that one down. Fear knocked on the door. I answered. Nobody was there. It's a shadow made out, it's an apparition, it's a nightmare. Even if it's just a little tiny bit of nervousness, much less the anger that I want to talk about today. If it irritates you, if it frustrates you, if it's uncomfortable in any way, It's a so-called negative feeling. It's fear-based. Love and fear. That's it. That's the yin and the yang of emotions. Love and fear. Well, in many ways, anger is the king of these emotions, and it's complex. But the what we don't know that it is found in all fear-based emotions, all hurtful emotions, all so-called negative emotions, is whether we're safe or not. You see, there's two areas of not knowing, two kinds of ignorance in fear. First is situational awareness. I don't know what's going to happen in the world around me, and that's frightening me. And so knowing and understanding would be the antidote. Ralph Waldo Emerson, the great transcendentalist. Knowledge is the antidote to fear. Proves right there that fear, and anxiety too, for that matter, are reduced and eventually eliminated as you understand them, as you face them. That's all they want. It's all fear wants, is to be addressed and faced and embraced. Tell me what I don't know about the situation, about the world around me. But secondly, and often more importantly, self-awareness, situational awareness, but at the center is self-awareness. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm for. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know if I'm up to the task. I don't know why I do the things I do. I don't know why I think the way I think. And I clearly have no idea why I feel the way I feel. That's the problem. And yet we project and we no, my problem is Joe and Sally and my spouse doesn't understand me and my rotten kids and my parents and the politicians and the world's corrupt and it's those immigrants and people of color and yada, 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 yada. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's a lack of self-awareness, the root of all fear. It's the anxiety of feeling all alone and having this massive identity crisis. All the pundits on television and magazines and newspapers now will be happy to talk to you about identity politics, but they don't talk so much about the identity crisis behind it. What is all this gay, straight, gender fluid, trans? I heard on the news this morning, Barbie doll is a communist. It's getting insane. It's been insane for quite a while. Barbie's a communist, I heard this morning. We can't have any new military officers appointed until Senator Tuberville gets his abortion bill passed. Some insane craziness going on. And all of this culture war is about people trying to figure out who they are. The tattoos, the crazy dressing, the neon hair, the body piercing, the like I say, the trans this and the gender that, and the fluidity, and people are trying to figure out who they are, and they ought to be able to do that. And on the left, there seems to be this push toward individuality, and on the right, the same process leads to a search for a tribe. I don't mean for that to be polarly exclusive, but I think that's the tendency. But we're all trying to just figure out who we are and ought to be free enough in a democratic society to be whoever we are, as long as we're not like, stomping on the toes of other people. So how much anger comes out of that? And why? See, it's all confusion. It's really just That's what fear is. That's what anger is. Anger is a defense mechanism. Now, I want to take a few minutes here to go over some notes very quickly that I have about de-escalating anger in others. And I'm going to move through this quickly so that we can get to the comments and the questions. Hopefully, again, you'll have some. And Hannah is our host today, at least till about 25 after. So use the chat to direct them.
Actually, I made Melinda the co-host, and people can chat her directly.
All right, chat Melinda then. And we'll go to the questions in a few minutes. So first of all, here's 8 tips for de-escalating anger in others. And again, this is not if they're angry at you. One of the curious things about anger is it's very directional. We might be jealous of others or envious of others, but we're angry at them. You might feel sad generally, but you're not really sad at other people. Anger is special, it's really directed. So if somebody is angry at you, you may not be the best person to help them manage their anger. But there are other situations where maybe your spouse is having a tough time, they're experiencing some road rage, or yelled at a retail clerk or a waitress, or the kids are driving her crazy, or their parents or neighbors or whatever. Or, like I say, in a work environment, you're a manager or supervisor. Here's 8 quick tips that will help you. First of all, don't do this in public. This should not be a group effort. Move to a private area. Watch your body language. People hear what you say, but at least half of communication comes from what you do, how you stand or how you sit, how you place yourself. Don't get too close to people in a situation like this. Sit or stand at least 2 or 3 feet away, and do it at an angle. Sitting obviously would be better than standing, right? It's a more relaxed position. But don't square off knee to knee. Sit at a slight angle, like a 30 degrees or 45 degrees. That really helps. Keep your hands in front of you and keep your palms up, right? You might say, well, what difference does that make? These are subtle cues, but the unconscious mind can pick this stuff up. Of course, if you're going to help somebody manage their anger, you're going to want to be empathetic. And that really requires you to be a good listener and non-judgmental in your listening. Say as little as, you don't need to say a lot. You need to listen, listen, listen. And short questions, not long, convoluted. You're not a psychiatrist, you're not doing psychoanalyst, you're not even Ann Landers. I'm dating myself. Dear Abby. Just, well, how's that feel? Well, why do you feel that way? Well, tell me more. There's a great question. Tell me more. And then, or here's one I like, because, just say, to keep them going, because, kind of an open-ended, continue please. Be sure you speak in calm and measured tones. You want to pause, breathe, allow yourself to search for the right word that gives them permission to go slow, to pause, to breathe, to look for the right word. And of course, you want to ask about the thoughts behind the feelings. You get them calm down, get them breathing. Why do you think you feel that way? What led to that? Tell me the story. If you get directly challenged, like, well, what would you do? Well, what do you expect me to do about that? I don't know what you want from me. Anybody would be angry in this situation, yada, yada. You don't have to take those direct hits. Be the matador, just sort of sidestep or even ignore those kinds of direct challenges. And redirect and go back to the issue of these are your feelings, right? I know they were stimulated by another, but they're coming from you. They're your response. So, when was the last time you felt that way? What does this remind you of? Help them work through it that way. Especially if you're an authority figure like a boss, a manager, a parent, even a spouse. Set boundaries and expectations. Look, here's what we're going to have to do. While we're working this out until we get it figured out, going to have some ground rules. In the meantime, right? Set some boundaries and allow time for silence and careful decision making. Silence is golden. And when you don't know what to say, it's perfectly okay not to say anything. It's a crazy idea. If you don't know what to do, don't do anything, you know. Um, Silence can be awkward, but sit through it anyway. Or if you're a good leader, again, or want to be a good leader, aspire to be a good leader, just even, well, let's just sit here with the silence for a second, see what comes up, okay? Right? Those are good leadership skills. Now let's talk about 8 tips for de-escalating your own anger. I did a little did a little research this week on this. I wanted to see what other people were saying, besides what I've put together in my own practice over the years. And I was amazed at how much stuff on the internet around anger management says basically stop doing it. Don't be angry. It's sort of a Dr. Phil approach to anger management. Don't do it. And it's not very good advice. I mean, it's good advice. It's just not very helpful. Just, what do you mean? If I could stop doing it, I would have. So let's go a little beyond just don't do it. I think by far the most important, the most effective way to manage anger or any negative emotion, as far as that goes, is to be a practitioner of mindfulness meditation. Because what mindfulness meditation, and indeed meditation in general, is about is learning to pay attention, learning to focus your attention, to notice what you notice, largely free from distraction and the grasshopper effect of your mind jumping all over the place, or the so-called monkey mind. That's why we practice meditation. You say, why am I watching my breath? Why does Michael keep having us do this? Well, because it's there. I could have you do an eyes open meditation holding a flower and just look at the flower. The importance of the exercise is to gently fix your attention, to build that muscle we talked about last week and a little the week before in the frontal lobes, the executive function of the frontal lobes, the decision-making ability to look at your choices, your options, to consider the alternatives and to review the consequences before you initiate an action. This is a muscle that needs developing, and until you're 20, 21, 22 years old, that part of your brain's not even fully developed yet. That's why kids do such stupid, reckless stuff. Teenagers. You say to a teenager, well, what's wrong with you? Didn't you think that? Didn't you think it through? And no, I didn't. I don't have the brain yet. I'm not 21. Brain's still developing. So practicing mindfulness meditation is going to help you open the space between what happens to you and how you respond, don't you see? That's the secret. Before you're triggered, to open that point of awareness where you say, I have choices. Remember the 4 points last week? I have choices. Number 2, always more choices than are immediately apparent. Number 3, my choices are in how I look at it and how I respond, not in battling the stimulus, which has already happened. And number 4, I choose for the greater good of all, not simply my self-centered, selfish self. Starting with I have choices, that's radical. If you're getting angry and you say, wait, I have choices, the anger subsides. That's powerful. And with a practice of meditation, you begin to see the anger in yourself on the horizon while it's just a little guy coming toward you. And you say to yourself, this is starting to really irritate me. This is starting to upset me. I can see it coming. Here it comes, marching right at me. Big, full-fledged, monstrous anger. By the time it gets here, I'm going to see red. I'm going to be the raging bull. There'll be no stopping me. I will say outrageous stuff. I will do regrettable things. I might end up in prison or dead. Or I may start a war or get other people hurt or live the rest of my life regretting that instant that I allowed it to get all over me. Because I wasn't prepared. I didn't see it coming and I didn't do anything. But if you practice meditation and reminding yourself repeatedly, I always have choices, more than are immediately apparent, and you see that anger coming toward you on the horizon, now's the time to nip it in the bud. As Barney Fife would say, nip it, nip it, nip it in the bud. I've got a mnemonic for you. It's called the Brain Mnemonic. It's in my book, Fearless Intelligence, way near the last chapter, and people never get to it. B-R-A-I-N, brain, B-R-A-I-N. Here's what it stands for. B, breathe. R, relax. A, accept accountability. Again, emotions are responses. They're not done to you. They're a response to the stimulus that's been done to you. Nobody made you angry. They insulted you, they irritated you, they demeaned you, they frustrated you, they frightened you. And anger was one of many responses that could have come up. But it's yours, so you have to accept accountability. Responsibility is your ability to choose your response. B-R-A, breathe, relax, accept it as yours. I is initiate a response in place of a reflexive knee-jerk reaction. An even-tempered, well-reasoned response initiated. I've thought about it, and I've decided that I'm going to respond to my anger and my fear and my frustration in this way. And the more I think about it, the more choices I have, the more I reflect on the consequences, the happier I'll be with the outcome. And the N is nix negativity. I don't want to hear about your negativity. All right. B-R-A-I-N, the brain mnemonic. Breathe, relax, accept accountability, initiate the response instead of a reflexive reaction, and no negativity. When speaking to others about your anger, and this also is real important, gang, I can't I can't overstate this. Use I statements. And this is hard, so you may have to catch yourself and redirect yourself when you start saying you. Well, you're the one. Well, you always, and you never, and you did this, and you started it. Well, you said, and remember that time 10 years ago? We're going back 20 years now. Yeah, well, I've never forgotten that. Well, that's my problem. You never forgot that. Yeah, well, you. And you pause for a breath, and the other one goes, well, you. So you're not going to get anywhere with that. What you see as defensive, the person that you're angry with or arguing with will see as offensive. What they see as their defense to your offensive defensiveness, he will see as offensive. It's like nuclear war. There really is no defense in an argument. So you end up, everybody is offensive and feeling self-righteous about, well, I'm only defending myself by being offensive and saying you and blaming and blaming and blaming. Don't blame yourself. The alternative is not to blame yourself. It's to take responsibility. That's not self-blame. So I feel, and then I felt for whatever reason, and that led me to feel and be humble. Maybe I'm confused. Take the hit. Tell me where I misunderstood you. That kind of thing. All right. The next point is find in your body where the anger is centered and give it a shape or a form. See if you can find your anger. I'd like to do that now, but I'd rather go to your questions instead. So this will be a podcast. You can listen to this on YouTube. You can go back over these if you want. And we'll review it again in the future. This whole idea of finding an emotion in the body. Give it a shape. Where is it located? What's it look like? Give it a color. Give it a temperature. Give it a texture. Well, my anger is this fiery, hot, red ball of flame in my belly, in my heart. No, actually, it's in my hands, now that I think about it. What are your hands doing? Maybe it's in your groin. Maybe you want to kick something. You might be surprised where you find that anger and what it looks like. But now you're cross-wiring with visualization. You're giving your brain a way of getting a grip on what anger looks like, what it feels like to the touch, and where it is in your body. It's easier to then reverse that image. I mean, if your anger is a fire, what are you going to do? That's right. Turn on the sprinklers. If your anger is a vice grip, what are you going to do? Yeah, back off the vice. If it's a spring that's wound too tight, what are you going to do? You unwind the spring. Breathe into it. Feel the letting go. That's all creative imagination, guided imagery, visualization. And then finally, look for the hurt in your anger. This is a big clue. What hurts? Usually we're just so angry we don't even look at the hurt. And when you find the hurt, then find the sadness. You go, sadness? I'm angry, I'm not sad. Well, when you find the hurt behind the anger, you'll find the sadness also. And then breathe and let go and drink some water and take a walk and breathe some more and you'll be just fine. All right, Melinda, do we have any questions or comments that we can go to at this point?
not right this second, but they usually pile right up towards the end and we run out of time, which is kind of, that was a very nice discussion on how to break that anger. And what came to my mind was the gate theory in the brain of neural impulses. And it refers to pain, how people use a 10 stimulator and they'll block a leg pain with a stimulus to their back, a little zapping, because the brain can't take in all those stimuli. It has to prioritize them. So it reminded me, when we're angry and we do anything else, think about the pain or any of these techniques, it challenges us to let go of the one and grab the other thought, no matter what it is, counting to 10. And that's how we really can't be angry and think about making dinner. I mean, it's just conflicting. So we kind of got to pick one.
Let me say something about counting, by the way. Counting to 10, or I even saw the other day, I mentioned doing a little Google search around this. Counting to 3. I thought, well, that's not very long. That's not very much of a count. 1, 2, 3, I'm still really pissed. Counting down, I think, is much better than counting up. Counting up creates more anticipation. And this may be a subtle point, but counting down is slowing down. It's just like going to sleep. You're going to have a hard time going to sleep if you count sheep or anything else up. The idea is to count down, because you fall asleep, you go down into sleep and you wake up in the morning, and the unconscious mind is very clear about down being slower, less stimulus, slower brain waves, sleep, unconsciousness, and up being stimulus. So minor but significant, I think. Counting works, but just count down.
I remember you recommended as a sleep technique, starting at the top of the stairs and going down and counting down 10, 9. And I thought, oh, this is nothing. But when I did it, I didn't even get to the bottom of the stairs.
Yeah.
It really is effective, I found.
Yeah. If you feel that feeling as you go down to that sinking feeling of moving down and deeper, or even an elevator or escalator, you don't even have to walk. You could just take an escalator down. That works too.
Larry has something to chime in on with.
Okay, Larry.
I have an uncle that is very angry at me because I have long hair. I mean, I thought we had a good relationship. I mean, I lived with him for a while when I moved to California to go to school. And then I moved into an apartment. He came over to deliver some mail. And when he saw me, he says, "You've joined them." Because when he saw my long hair. He is the friendliest, best communicator that I know. He was governor of the Lions, the whole upper Midwest part of the Lions, for several years. I mean, he's a very friendly person. So I don't understand the mechanism that worked there. What's the problem that he has with me, really?
Well, I can really surmise that the key word there would be them, right? So his belief system is
Yes.
that there's somebody here who's not us, and that threatens him. His amygdala fires off. The more stressed we are, the more binary we are, and the less likely we are to see a third way or a fourth option. Everything is either or. All you got to do is watch 10 minutes of Fox News, and you'll see this binary game at work. Everything is all or nothing. It's why in a court of law, they when you take an oath, they say to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, because you can create these binaries, these either or, all or nothing binaries, and be telling the truth, but you're leaving out 80% of the story, And that is studied by a lot of propagandists and pundits, but it's natural in people who are triggered, who are anxious or nervous or frightened. The more stressed we are, wherever we stand politically or socially, or the more stressed we are, it's just a physiological factor, the more stressed we are, um, the more likely we are to think in binary terms. Flight, fight or flight. You know, good guys, bad guys, love it or leave it, my way or the highway, all right, all wrong, all differences are opposites. So you join them. He's decided that long hair is uh, evidence that you have rejected mainstream America and his values of whatever they happen to be, white Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, Lions Club, virtue, goodness, American flag, apple pie, Chevy. I don't know, whatever they are, but if he's as friendly and reasonable as you say, I'm sure you can work through that. Maybe tell him, no, you didn't join anything. You're an individual, that you've got your own fingerprints and DNA, and there's nobody like you. Nobody ever has been. Nobody ever will be. And see me in 6 months, and I may be bald. You never know. I cut off all my hair. Does that help, Larry?
Yeah, well, it's been a lot of years that I've been working on it, and so far it hasn't been much movement. But you know, I mean, I went to his wife's funeral, and you know, I greeted him, and he just kind of rejected me and said, "We'll talk later." But then he never talked to me the rest of the time I was at the funeral. So I don't know. I've tried a lot, but I guess the hair must be a big deal for him. I don't seem to be able to get past it.
It's funny, I don't think of you as having long hair myself, Larry. I think of you as having rather sort of moderately long hair, but you're a long way from being
Well,
freaky
right
about
now it's moderately long. Yeah. Well, at times I've had fairly long hair, but
Well,
but
just
you know,
Larry,
longer than
love him anyway. Just keep love bombing him. Treat him with respect. Call him sir. Be truthful and in your integrity and honest about your feelings toward him. And that's all you can do. And maybe he'll come around, and maybe he'll come around and never admit it to you. Maybe he'll secretly,
yeah.
you'll never really know how much respect he does have for you.
Okay. Thanks.
Be not deceived by the appearance of things. Anybody else, Mindy?
Not so far, actually. That reminded me, Larry was talking about, reminded me that sometimes I just take someone's countenance in when I see them and I decide that they maybe have an attitude or don't like me. This isn't pertaining to Larry specifically, but that so much of our judgment about how people are approaching us is non-verbal. And I know you've helped me to say, kind of check my preconceived notion. There's one particular person that I interact with and I find myself tensing up, and I know they can sense it. And so your advice of just love them and do my practice has really helped. And I think the next time I see this person, it'll be different, because I just don't want to pick up that tense thread.
Yeah. If we treat people as if they already are the people we want them to be, they often become that. It's really weird. Treat them as if they already are who you want them to be, and see what influence that has.
That's a
Can't hurt.
great exercise can be tough to remember, but it just always works.
To remember it, close your eyes. Imagine the next meeting you have with them and see yourself in your mind's eye remembering that concept that you're going to, no matter how they behave, how they act, how they appear, what they say, you're going to respond to them as if they're the person you want them to be. Just, kind, gentle, loving, respectful, decent.
Yeah, and I think the challenge with that is me remembering that I'm the only person I get to change, and that it all starts here, as opposed to sizing them up, which is can be a real tendency of mine.
Yeah, that you get to change or are able to influence, really. I mean, we can have indirect influence on others, but our primary responsibility is change yourself. Physician, heal thyself.
Yeah.
Talking to a physician, as they say that.
And it's hard sometimes for me to look around and see that a lot of people that doesn't even seem to occur to them. And that's when I have to remember, oh, you got to do it anyway, Melinda. You tell them that they're not looking at themselves as a responsible party. I mean,
we can't wait for the tide of humanity to figure this stuff out. Wasn't it Margaret Mead who said, never doubt that a small group of committed individuals can change the world? Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.
Yeah, it's a great quote.
Yeah, quotable quote. Okay, well,
sometimes though, Michael, I was thinking when you were talking through the meditation, just things that are going on, and to actually just say, okay, all I can do is my own practice and do what you advocate, because sometimes it just doesn't seem like enough or effective, or it seems like we're losing ground anyway. Maybe you could speak to that.
Yeah, I feel that sometimes, and what I remind myself is the universe is balanced. Keep in mind that whether we look at it from a spiritual point of view, everything ultimately is spirit, which is Latin for breath, or from hard science, physics, everything is energy. Spirit, energy, it vibrates. Anything that vibrates has a yin and a yang. It has a peak and it has a trough. You can't have an inside without an outside. You can't have a purchase without both a buyer and a seller. You can't have shadow without light. You can't have a wave cresting without it being preceded by and followed by a trough. So if you're looking only at the trough and you say things are getting worse and worse and worse and worse, it would be a good idea to remind ourselves that that is just the other side of the coin. That for the trough to be that deep, the crest has to be just as high. And so that line about it's the worst of times and the best of times is perpetually true. Things are going to hell in a handbasket. Trump's right. But at the same time, things are getting better and better and better, and they never have been.
Never thought I'd hear you say that one.
It's true. Things are getting better all the time. The world is more peaceful than it's ever been. Crime is down. Teenage pregnancy is down. Sexually transmitted disease is down. Things are getting better everywhere. And yes, they're getting worse in many places too. It's just the way it is. There's an ebb and a flow. And both things are true. Now, overall, we would like to see the spiral of progress that Martin Luther King quotation about the arc of the universe bends toward justice. But it's a huge arc and it's a slow bend, so things are improving. And you know, even if you look at these end times people in the fundamentalist Christian church, revelation doesn't mean, apocalypse doesn't mean the end of the world, it means a new beginning. It's a, a point in our future where we hit a critical mass. Some significant number of people get it. They're responsible for their lives. It's important to be kind and loving and generous. The news just doesn't bring you this stuff. They're not showing you night after night after night. Nobody's writing books and doing documentaries. Well, I won't say nobody, but the number of people that are living lives of sacrifice, that work every day to help the poor and the oppressed and the downtrodden and the sick and the hungry and the homeless. Every day they're out there finding meaning and purpose in their lives, helping these people. That just doesn't, it's not newsworthy. It's just, I saw something very strange in the news this week, and it's 12:30, so I won't run long with this. A missing black woman in the South. When women go missing, they're always pretty little blonde girls. Missing black women do not get reported in the news. But I'll be damned. There was a story this week on one of the, I think it was NBC, about a black woman in the southern, deep South United States went missing, and they actually did a news story about it as if people cared. That was stunning to me. I almost fell out of my chair. I couldn't believe it. Things that, but who's going to say, oh, look, what a wonderful story. This black woman is missing. Just the fact that it was reported. Things are getting better. And yeah, it's horrible. It's just, it's all true. We just have no, in the scheme of things, evolution is exceedingly slow. So I acknowledge the frustration, but we benefit from the save the world stuff. It's like, yeah, okay, you want to make a contribution to the world, that's great, but who benefits most is the self. And again, it's not selfish to put the air mask on first so you can help other people. Knowing that there's a mutual benefit in being of help to other people doesn't make it a selfish thing. It's still a beautiful thing. There's no sacrifice really in helping other people because we all feel wonderful. Just one of my clients was telling me the other day about a woman that tapped on his window at the store and needed help starting the car and starting her car, and he was thrilled to jump out of his car in the heat and go over and help her get her car started. And made his whole day. It was just a little thing like that, but that's who we are. We love that stuff, to be able to help out, and more people are figuring that out and letting go of the nastiness and the cruelty and the whole sense of being, aggrieved that Trump has given everybody permission, not everybody, but the aggrieved to be their worst selves. Let's all hate the same people together. All right. Thank you for that, Mindy. Thank you, Larry, for your comment, your question. Thank each of you for being here and staying here. And join us next week, same time, same bat channel. Aloha, Namaste, Salam. Please unmute and say goodbye to your friends. And thanks once again for being here. Really, really appreciate it.
Bye, everybody. Try and stay cool, friends. Great day,
You're
everyone.
freezing, Hanif.
Well,
Thanks, Michael.
Aloha.
bye.
Bye bye. So long.